Hey, what's up, everybody? BDL44 coming to another video. It's about 5:30 in the morning, and I didn't really know what I wanted to turn on the camera to say, but I think I'll just go Laker with it, keep it safe, not do too much. First of all, congratulations to my squad yesterday for beating the Chicago Bulls. We definitely found ourselves in a position to ultimately make up for a loss that we had against them just the previous matchup. To you know, Patrick Beverly had a lot to say throughout the process of those games leading up. And at the end of it, he was a over gopher for the Chicago Bulls with like minus 34, which is something I didn't even notice when I did my video last night on the game. So that was interesting, rather gratifying for us Laker fans who've been hearing his mouth. And of course, went through the whole first half of the season where things went south. Even though he played pretty solid with a good portion of the minutes given, at the end of the day, the lineups he were in just made it for a tough situation. Another thing that I did not realize yesterday, and I don't know if it was just because if I clicked away while this had happened, I literally watched the game and didn't know that Austin Reaves had did the little man on Patrick Beverly. So if you hear me and I didn't acknowledge that, that's because I didn't know it until after the video was made. I didn't even know that it happened. I guess it happened around the 3-minute mark of the fourth quarter. I don't know how I missed it. I wasn't away from the game at that time, but I think I probably just clicked away to look at some stats of the game at the time, and probably clicked back after that had happened. That's what probably ended up happening to me. Because I usually do that. When they go to commercial, I'm not going to sit there and watch commercials or nothing. I'm going to go look at the stats to keep up with the game or go check out something else, obviously. But I think that's what happened there. I just clicked away for a split second and missed Austin Reaves do the little man. But it was good, Those are all guys who were on the team together just 3-4 weeks ago. Like, this is basically our guy. So when he does a little man to LeBron James, or he pulls LeBron James out of the sky, Patrick Beverly does, there's going to be a team response. It's going to have some love attached to it because, at the end of the day, that's their guy. So Patrick Beverly, when Austin Reaves did the little man on Patrick Beverly, I'm 1,000% certain he doesn't do that if he didn't know Patrick Beverly. 1,000% certain. Not to say that he's a punk, but it's a certain familiarity that you can get away with stuff. It's the same thing I said about the foul that Patrick Beverly did on LeBron. I think he fouls him just the same, but I think it goes totally positively because they were literally on the same team all year long. So I kind of like that. I think it makes for, not to say that I want more turnover in the league with players playing with one another necessarily. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm just saying it is good when guys have had some rapport with one another. It makes for better competition if the energy wasn't south on the team. You can really see old ex-teammates play each other. It makes for good basketball when guys know each other's game, that kind of thing. So, yeah, that was one thing that stood out that I want to acknowledge, that Austin Reaves did, in fact, get him back for that little man thing that he did to Bron. And, I think all in all, we look at this situation as a Laker fan and you just feel like you're a bit, you want to take the positivity from the win. But as I went into last night, the majority of what I had to say did not even acknowledge most of the game because I was too busy upset at some of the substitution patterns that just look so very obvious to me. When you only use two sets of teams, your bench and your starters are significantly positive and your bench is significantly negative, it just makes for a strong contrast that is so evident that it really took up what it is that my mindset was kind of absorbing as I was watching the game. It's like, yeah, the game is cool, but is he really going to sub in this unit again? He's not going to switch up that unit at all. I mean, I've listened to so many Laker people talk about in-game adjustments, myself included. We talk about it ad nauseum. We mentioned it before we hired Darvin Ham. We mentioned in-game adjustments when we hired Frank Vogel. So the fact that we still have issues with what it is that we think are in-game adjustments just makes for a really, really frustrating situation. Now, I'm not mad overall, because at the end of the day, a win is a win. But we just want to see things that prelude to more success. I'm always looking for the next, whether it be the next win, the next possession, the next championship, however it goes. There has to be a certain mindset that what you're doing is intentional and that you're going to try to make sense of it. And I just think that the Los Angeles Lakers, in the midst of all the things that they're worried about, they're not really sure how to execute that. They're not really sure how to make it so that what they're doing is ultimately matching up properly. And I think that's what the best way to articulate it. It's not that we're not intent on doing all kinds of different stuff. It's not like we're not seeing positivity in certain areas. It's just that the weaknesses are glaring and they do cost you wins. When you have the wrong people on the floor and so many different things go wrong and you don't put an end to it soon enough. That's another thing that we didn't like about the first Bulls game. We had a nice long stretch of play where we didn't see any success and there was no timeout called and they continued to run the score up. In this particular matchup, we saw something similar when the score was starting to dissipate. We had the lead at about 16, 17 points, and then we proceeded to let them run it down to 1. I think we might have called a timeout in between that. And then they had another situation where we were up by about 17, and we let them run it back down to like 8. And then from there, call a timeout. It's just, for me, it's like, I just like for us to stop the bleeding on certain things, especially when you see that their matchups have holes in them. It's like, bro, you don't sit there and watch your team struggle unless you have purpose to it. Like Phil Jackson used to do that. It used to drive me crazy, but I understood that Phil Jackson had a 82 game scheduled plan that he was going to execute to make your team, no matter how funny them substitutions looked early in the season, by the end of the season, your team was going to be on a string and you're likely going to be in the playoffs fighting for a championship. More than likely. And so a lot of times you see Phil Jackson sub in this guy or that guy and you see the rotations look funny. It's like, damn, what the hell are we doing? But at the end of the game, you won anyway. Because he knew that he was conserving energy here. He was putting players on the floor for this specific purpose there. And he was going to swap out of that as soon as it made sense to do so. And it was a lot of what you saw that, though, kind of frustrated you with Phil. You still love the results, so you didn't really question it. And that's the difference. With Phil's rotations, I go nuts, but I'm winning. So what am I complaining about? But with this guy's rotations, it's not like that. You are directly seeing, detrimental basketball. And on top of that, you don't have the confidence, obviously, because Phil's Phil. You know what I mean? This is a rookie coach. So it's like you don't think there's a whole lot of method to the madness. Even if there is some, you don't see the result that works out. So that's where it goes wrong for me. I just want to see Phil Jackson. But Phil Jackson ain't coming through that door. So what I want to see is good rotations. And that's really all we demand of Darvin Ham. Not that he turn into anybody else, but that he start to develop something that looks like what we can be pleased with. Within his system and not just have us running unconventional stuff that does not work. So until we see a very, very consistent look at that, until those mistakes are made rarely rather than more frequently, we're going to talk about it more frequently. And so that's kind of what it is, man. I don't see a whole lot of problems with this roster if it's utilized in a way that I believe in. I don't think there are many games we can compete in. And I say that every day. Every single day, I think this roster has an opportunity, especially if you add just a very simple young center like a Vernon Carey or somebody who could block a shot or two. I don't even care who it is. You just got to add a 7-footer. I've been thinking a lot about metrics and players that are long and players that can really help you, players that are stuck overseas that can really impact the basketball game. And they're guys, man. I'm not aware of every name, so I don't like bringing up one name as a means of trying to get people to pay attention to international play. I'm not a scout in that way, and I trust our scouts know what they're doing there. It's not a deficiency of our franchise, but when I look at what we have going on right now, I just say, can we please seek out somebody who's really tall and long so they can block some shots and dunk some easy buckets for us? I think about a guy in Philippines by the name of Kai Soto. Everybody laughs about the dude, but I've watched him play. I know he could help the team. He may not be developed fully or nothing, but he can give me 10 minutes and block 2 shots and keep a guy like Zach LaVine from getting at the rim by fouling him. That's really all I need him to do. Just sit back down and we put back in Wenyen Gabriel. But these are the type of things. It's like the team front office may not necessarily be aware of not only how helpful that type of thing would be, but how necessary doing something like that would be for your roster when you're going up into a matchup like the Timberwolves, for example, when you got 2 7-footers and you don't have the ability to defensive rebound against them to stop them from getting easy buckets. Last time we saw the Timberwolves and they had both of those players on the floor, that's what it was. They were just we were putting small ball lineups on the floor because that's what we had to give. And they were rebounding the ball over us because that's what it is that you do when you have that type of size advantage. So the odds of us beating the Timberwolves, if they're playing well, is slim to none. We don't match up well with them at all. I'm not going to hold you. We don't. For all the things that we do well and have going well for us, we had better hit 3-point shots against them. If we are cold from behind the arc or just average from behind the arc, I don't really know how we score inside on them. I don't really know. Because Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns are going to crowd Anthony Davis to go in. And then we're going to have to find ways of scoring on the inside while they're doing that in order to maintain our identity as a team that shoots more inside shots and gets to the line more so. than shooting threes. It's how we win. And so if we can't get on the inside on a team, it renders us to be a three-point shooting team. Not only that, but when we render a three-point shooting team, it increases the ability for the other team to defend the three. And I know that the Minnesota Timberwolves have three-point perimeter defensive players. They can guard that. And then you think about, well, what can we do to get those centers off the floor? Nothing, because they're bringing in a guy that's very good off the bench in Naz Reid to help along with whatever they get in foul trouble with. And you know he's fantastic. He might as well be starting. The Clippers would love to have Naz Reid right now. Like, this is the type of thing I'm talking about. So I don't look at the Timberwolves as a team we could poo-poo. I hated how they put this team together at the beginning of the season. I did, because that trade to get Rudy Gobert was the worst trade in the history of the sport. But when you look at the field that they're facing right now, this season, if they have the right path, they can shock the world, because they do have the ability at the end of the day to get to the ball quicker than anybody else with Rudy and Cat. And because both of those guys are on the floor at the same time, Cat can roam as a power forward the way you want AD to be able to roam, but we never allow him to because we don't give ourselves a center. They took care of that and made sure that Karl-Anthony Towns is never going to have that problem in their uniform. And so that's what it is. Like, they can miss Karl for a month. He can come back in the playoffs and still be a good team. And that's exactly the very thing you're looking at right now. And so as we go into this team's house, you understand that them stilts is not the heart and soul of the team. Anthony Edwards, baby Michael Jordan, is the heart and soul of the Minnesota Timberwolves and the superstar of the future and the franchise player of the Minnesota Timberwolves. So that's what I'm telling you. It's like they got a dynamic. Honestly, if they really use it properly, they got some type of dynamic like what we had back in the day when we had Powell, Bynum, and Lamar. They don't play like Powell, Bynum, and Lamar, but you still got the same size. And Anthony Edwards is playing the Kobe role. That's exactly what they got going on. And then they got good role players, guys with heart, on their bench. You know what I mean? And that's what I like about the Timberwolves this season. I look over that bench, I see dudes. I see dudes that are developing well. I see dudes that I've known from my team, like Jalen Noel. I know what he can do. I know how much of a microwave that dude is. You know, I look at a guy like Slow-Mo. I know what he can do. That's a triple-double threat. That's somebody who's very difficult to guard because of how he plays with speed and pace. He complements a team like that in a crazy way. I look at a player like Austin Rivers, and I know what type of chip he has on his shoulder and how he plays in meaningful situations. There's not too many people that I trust going into a foxhole in a role-playing situation than him. Because I know if I call his number to give me what I need, he's going to give me exactly that, and he's going to make it hard on the other team, even from his position. So it's like, I know what we're going up against in this Minnesota team. Taurean Prince is playing some of the best ball of his career right now. The man's had like 31 the last couple games ago. And so I told people after we saw the Minnesota Timberwolves about 3 weeks ago that they were going to ascend because the way that they played started from the defensive end and it translated to offense. Then they had players like Anthony Edwards could string together 6-7 threes on top of the fact that they have the best rim protection in the Western Conference. So as far as I can tell, they've been able to weather the storm and do all this without Cat. Now you're bringing back a 30-point three-point shooter who's 7'1". Like, I would not be surprised if they shock the world and at least come out of the second round, get to the Western Conference Finals. Wouldn't shock me at all. It's going to be about the path. They don't have the experience. But then again, when you look at Mike Conley, you look at Rudy Gobert, yeah, they do. Yeah, they've been together for and played some playoff games and had some big experience in playoff games. Yes, they have. And so it's like, I know that Minnesota has the ability to do things that nobody sees them doing. People talking about the Kings as sleeper teams. People looking at teams like the Clippers and seeing them rise a little bit. And it's a lot of teams in the Western Conference. Phoenix with KD coming back. You like these teams. But I'm telling you, I don't know who is guarding those stilts if they run into Minnesota. I don't know who's guarding them. When it really comes down to it, if Minnesota play the way they're supposed to play, they're going to get easy boards on both sides of the floor. They're going to out-rebound everybody see. You know what I'm saying? They're going to out-rebound everybody they run into. And so I don't know how the spacing works as far as the defensive end. I don't know if they're going to continue to be able to play as good defensively with Karl on the floor. You know, not necessarily being a defensive player, but his length. I mean, my God, he's a superstar player. So it's not like he's going to be a deterrent to good play when everyone around him is really good. You know, and they already made the playoffs last year. Obviously, a lot of those a lot of those players are gone, but the ones that they need, I think, are still there. The guys that they're really doing the heavy lifting for Minnesota, they're still there. So, you know, a guy like McDaniels is starting to get better and better and better and better every day. I just know that they're not to be poo-pooed. I know they're going to continue to win games, and I don't like our matchup going up against them, given the fact that we have so much to try to guard and such a disadvantage on the boards. And then you couple that with the rotations our coach is prone to use, and we see this obstacle course set up for them to score, just like we did against Dallas, just like we did against the first Bulls game and several others. I just don't like how this is setting up. If Karl-Anthony Towns wants to shoot 8 threes, who the hell is stopping him from attempting those? Who on our roster is going to actually be able to stop him from attempting threes? And maybe you say Anthony Davis. You want Anthony Davis guarding the perimeter after what you saw against the Dallas Mavericks? You do not. You want Anthony Davis chasing out Karl Towns to the three-point line? No, you do not. So what's your answer? Vanderbilt? He ain't tall enough. And that's his old teammate. That's his old superstar. He go cook him. He know him better than anybody else. So it's like, this is not a good matchup for the Lakers. Minnesota is a team that has a lot of bulletin board material in regards to us too, because we got a bunch of their old players. Beasley, Vanderbilt, and D'Lo. So it's going to be on them to step up and play well and have some pride about beating their old team in order for us to overcome some of these size disadvantages. They're going to have to play hard and play heavy. And look, the way that we're rotating right now, our coach had better switch it up. He had better switch it up, because that front court rotation that we got going on right now ain't going to do nothing for you against Karl and Cat. It ain't. You had better play your Wenyen Gabriels. You better play your Anthony Davis. And in my opinion, you had better get you a Kai Soto or something. You had better grab somebody before this game starts tomorrow. Because if you don't, you are at a definite disadvantage, just like you were against the Houston Rockets without AD, and just like you were against the Bulls when they got in foul trouble. This is in the first game. So I'm just telling y'all, when you see certain things on paper, it translates, man. And if your coach is not looking at those things, you about to run into a wall. And so that's what I'm concerned about. I don't know what Darvin's looking at, but chances are he ain't looking at what I'm looking at. You know what I mean? So the philosophy differences is ultimately what you run into when you see me. I just have a complete and utter different philosophy as it pertains to how to attack basketball games in Darvin Ham. You guys watch me enough, you know that. So I'm never going to see it quite like he sees it, because I just have so much of an emphasis on size. You know, when I listen to Stephen A. Smith, for example, he puts an extra emphasis on shooting. Anytime you hear him talking about somebody being good, it's because they have a shooter on the floor who can shoot. It's just his way of looking at the game. For me, it's like shooters is cool, but I haven't seen too many Beasleys to really be like that. I know that there are other intangibles that must be considered, and you can live without shooting if you consider all of those intangibles to a degree, depending on the era, depending on how things are going. But like, just assuming that just because a guy can hit a jump shot that he's going to win a championship, nah, hell nah. That is absolutely a misdirection in my opinion. So it's just about philosophy. Maybe somebody will look at me and say, yo, you're considering all this size, but what about this, and this? And as my basketball brain grows, I'll be like, yes, so size does need to be scaled back and this needs to be pushed forward. But until then, this is the way I see the game. This is what I'm telling y'all. Size is where my basketball IQ is at. And if you don't have enough of that, you're going to be down. From my mouth to your ears, you're going to be down. You're not going to win. And it's about the field. Too many teams have abandoned small ball. If this was back in the day when you had a Phoenix over here and a Dallas over here and, you know, several teams running small ball over the place, yeah, here 4-guard lineups ain't going to have you looking as bad as Chicago looked yesterday against us in the fourth quarter. But if you run that in this era where people are piling up 7-footers, putting Rudy and Karl together, putting Allen and Mobley together, putting all them guys in Orlando together, when you got that type of thing, putting Wiseman and Duran together in Detroit, you see the league abandoning that garbage. I hope everybody's watching. Wembanyama's coming into the league. Chet Holmgren is questionable. I want people to know that. Before we go any further, Chet Holmgren of the OKC Thunder is listed as questionable. Where I checked, I think it was on the ESPN Fantasy Basketball or something like that. They got him listed as questionable. Now, I don't know that he would come back, but that's a playoff team as far as I can tell. They ain't going to fall out the way they've been winning. If they get that 7'1" guard back on that floor, and he decides to forego his Rookie of the Year eligibility for next year to come back and play in the playoffs, OKC Thunder may get out of the first round, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling y'all right here and now. Jalen Williams, J-Dub, Baby Magic Johnson just hit a shot at the buzzer yesterday to beat the Detroit Pistons. I did not see any highlights. I just know it took place. That's one person that can hit a buzzer shot on you. Josh Giddey's another guy who can hit a buzzer shot on you. Obviously, SGA can hit a buzzer shot on you. And Chet Holmgren can hit a buzzer shot on you. So if they start getting that stuff together, and you start seeing how this team slots together when you have Poku and Deng and all of these guys, there's going to be some teams. There's going to be some teams. A team, somebody that runs into OKC Thunder, and if Chet Holmgren's on the floor, it's going to be very difficult for them to beat that team. If it could be whoever. It could be the Phoenix Suns, the Kings, Grizzlies, Denver. None of those teams actually want to face a SGA, Baby Magic Johnson, Josh Giddey, and Chet Holmgren OKC team in these playoffs when ain't nobody seen what that looks like this season. The only thing that works in the favor of the team that faces that is knowing that they ain't been together all season, and that continuity may hurt them. You bring back a guy like Chet Holmgren, it could hurt you because this is his rookie season. He ain't never played basketball on this floor before. So, he may not know what he's doing. Bring him off the bench. It could be all kinds of weird stuff. Problem is, he's a high-level talent. High level. Like, really high level. So, the chance of him coming into a pickup game and being a star in that pickup game is pretty damn high. So, that's essentially what I'm telling you. If they put him out there, even for 20 minutes, he's going to affect things. His three-point shooting, his easy ability to rebound and block shots, he's going to affect things in a very, very negative way. If a team like Sacramento run into him, it ain't going to be the same series for Sabonis and Keita and those guys. It ain't going to be the same series. It's just not. If Denver runs into him, that's going to make life significantly more difficult for guys like Jokic and Gordon to do what it is that they do. Not to say that he's stopping them, but an extra 7-footer with that type of length, not to be toyed with. So these are things I'm looking at like, yo, do people see what's coming? Cat's back. Zion may be back. Chet may actually play. There's a small chance that he may actually play. Though I'm not telling anybody to bet on that at all. I'm just saying he's listed as questionable, which means if they make it to the playoffs, why wouldn't he be still listed as questionable or even in? All I'm saying to you is the Western Conference is getting tight at the last minute. Tight. As in teams are getting healthier and better at the last minute, and I don't really know that one of those teams ain't going to be the teams that rise to the top. The New Orleans Pelicans, the Minnesota Timberwolves, if Chet comes back to OKC, those are three teams that nobody should want to see in the first round. You shouldn't want to see none of them in the first round. Especially if you're one of them Western Conference teams that benefited from the whole league not being as good as they are right now. Teams like OKC, you didn't have to see them in that form. Zion and them, you didn't have to see them in that form. Carl's been out for half of the season. You didn't have to see them in that form. And now you got to see them in that form in the playoffs. Are you supposed to dominate? You sure, Zach? You sure, Memphis? You know what I'm saying? You sure, Denver? I don't think so. I'm not saying they're going to lose those series per se. They probably still should be favored to win those series. But that is not the same competition that they're preparing for right now. And so that's what I'm saying to y'all. It's like, look, the Western Conference is wide open. There's not a single team, not one single team that I think should just be favored to rise to the top right now. They all have their own little thing to deal with. And the teams at the top, I don't have as much confidence in as some of the teams in the middle and the bottom. Denver ain't the best team in the Western Conference, you ask me. And so these are type of things like, all right, salute the Kobe minute, of course, but I just understand that there are teams. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I told you at the beginning of the season. I told y'all that I think the New Orleans Pelicans had the most talented team from top to bottom. I told y'all that. And that has not manifested. Some of that bench just didn't stay the way that it should. Other players got, it's just not the same thing. But if they get Zion back, the way that Murphy has made a jump this season, the way that CJ's been healthy all year, the way that B.I.'s now healthy right now, Valanciunas is on the floor for them. They're getting guys back, man. That's the thing about them. All these little players that have been hurt for the last 3 years, some of them guys that they drafted, they got hurt. There's a couple of them. Kira Lewis, several of them dudes. They're down there. Jones, healthy, hitting shots. playing better. This is a New Orleans team that if they get everybody back, if they get Zion back, don't look at them the same way. Just don't. That's all I'm telling you. I think they kind of go without saying, but then hear me when I say it. Don't think that you're running into any aspect of the New Orleans Pelicans that's been here all season if they get Zion back. Alvarado is healthy now, from what I understand, or should be on his way back. I know better, man. Jackson Hayes and his length, I know better, man. So these are the type of things like you don't want to see them in a 7-game series if they got their full horses, and you don't want to see them in a playing situation if Zion happens to play in that game. You know, it's just real. You know, I look at what the Clippers are doing. I mentioned they got Russell Westbrook. He went for 32 and a bunch of stats yesterday. Really, really high efficiency. Yelling on Memphis's floor. I think that was an extremely impressive win. It seems to me that they are finding a line of rotations that work for them without Paul George. And I think that that's intriguing to me because they do have guys like Terrence Mann. They do got guys like Batum and stuff like that who should be able to fill in for Paul George to at least simulate some of what it is that he does on both sides of the floor, if not most of it. So, you know, I think that there's a way when you got Russell Westbrook on $1 million contract. I've told you guys a million times. It's the complete opposite, polar opposite even, of what the Lakers were dealing with in regards to Russell, because we had Russell on a 47 times more expensive contract. 47 times more. That's 47 Westbrooks we could pile up if we could find them for the one, which is the Clippers are benefiting from right now. So it's like they should win a lot just off of the strength of having him at a price tag like that, playing at the level he's capable of playing. And the shootings that they have, the shooters around him, make it so that he fits better than he did with the Lakers. They have an infinitely better Russell Westbrook than we do. Infinitely better. And he shook off all the jitters of playing in Los Angeles in our uniform. So it's like, nah. I don't look at the Clippers as if they haven't inherited a huge piece. They did. They inherited a championship level piece that should vault them out of the first round at least. I really believe that, especially after seeing how they've been able to work him into the equation now. He looks good for them. But the way that they win basketball games, I just don't think it's going to sustain. They got to find ways of winning games. They always got some weird way of winning. It's like Russell Westbrook went for huge numbers. Nick Batum went for 8 threes, that kind of thing. It's like maybe you can find ways of making something like that happen each and every night from someone different. But I don't think any of the stuff that we've seen you can really count on in regards to the Clippers. And at the end of the day, as much as I like Zubac, he's going to be outclassed by some of them bigs. So if you value size like I do, you see that as a problem. But Kawhi's playing the best basketball he's played in like 3 years. So, you know, that should help. A couple of the guys are more healthy than they've been, that kind of thing. So that should help. Plumlee adding to the size situation is a good thing. That they got a backup for Zubac. And I think that that's what they were missing for a good portion of the season. So that's what I told them to get, and they got it. So I think the Clippers are a more complete team than they've been. You're starting to see Bones Highland play better now. Terrence Mann stepping forward and stuff like that. So, you know, they're a dangerous team. They, like I told everybody, they weren't going to fall. They haven't been falling. Ever since I said that, I think they lost maybe one game. Some stuff you just see on paper, man. It's like, look, they picked up Russell with $1 million contract. You're going to incorporate him into a situation where you got a bunch of shooters. And I think that team is constructed to attack teams like the Lakers in ways that they don't like. Just like I said about the Bulls, having them forwards and them guards that are superstars, and then other complementary forwards next to them that play defense, and then a center that could kind of hang back but do big things if he chooses to. That's just a really, really difficult dynamic for conventional teams with great point guards and great power forwards and reasonable small forwards to be attacked by. So that's kind of what it is for us. It's kind of how it is for a lot of the league. And teams like that just tend to do well. You look at the Boston Celtics, that's what they have. The forwards that come at you at superstar levels, and then the centers that play defense and the guards that play defense. It's a way to work. It's the way to work in the NBA right now. It's a tough way to try to defend a team like that. So that's what I'm seeing. Teams like that just look like they have a good shot at doing some good things too. You know, and it's just interesting. You're seeing teams play well. I think the next season is going to be really interesting. Teams like Washington, Indiana, OKC, some of these teams that are struggling at the bottom, they're gonna rise. Rockets, these teams ain't gonna stay bad for too long. And you can see how they're starting to show you the momentum that they're gonna be carrying into next season, this season. So those are teams I'm looking at. You know what I'm saying? And so that's really where my head is. I'm very curious to see what happens next. Like I said, the Western Conference teams are bowing out. Portland's now officially out the mix. I thought Utah looked like they were out the mix. They probably are, but they had a big game from THT, went for like 47 or something like that. My God, Lakers 47. These type of things I'm talking about. Like, yo, I knew THT could play, but I also knew that we weren't putting the ball in his hands enough for him to do the things that he did well. I also knew that we weren't really utilizing him in a way that showcased him in any way. And now I see what he's able to do for the Utah Jazz, and I just look at my franchise and I say, you really gave him away. For Patrick Beverley and God knows what else, Damian Jones or something like that. I don't know what we did there. I don't remember exactly how that trade went, but we gave away him and Stanley Johnson and brought back Patrick Beverley's expiring contract, which we ultimately turned into Mo Bamba, who's not playing at all for us when we need him. I mean, it's just like, could you have botched a young star's development and contract situation any more than we did with THT? I don't know, because he looked awful in our uniform most of the time. Just awful. And he's had an amazing season, damn near all-star level season for the Utah Jazz, and a winning season for their team, more or less, for their standards, what they were trying to do. They've overachieved like crazy, and he's had a big to do with that. So I don't like it, man. THT. Now from here, he's going to go on to be God knows what, how devastating of a talent he can actually become with the numbers that he's been putting up all year with the Utah Jazz. And it's like, yeah, we didn't necessarily value him, but we also didn't necessarily see any of this. So it's just like, as a Laker fan, the frustration is just like, it's hard to really absorb it, because you look at THT and say you don't miss him because he didn't play well. He was garbage for us. But now it's like, that's not who they have. They just picked up a guy they could probably get 2 first-round picks for. You know what I'm saying? And we gave away him for Patrick Beverley like 8 months before that. Like, just type of stuff. It's like, yo, I don't know, LA. I don't know if you want me to continue to have faith in you. Like I said, I'm happy that we made certain trades, but that made our team better. But when you look back at some of the stuff that we botched, you look at the Caruso situation, you look at the Zubac situation, you look at this one, you look THC. These are young players, man. These are young players that got a future in this league. I look over his fee and how he's playing in Charlotte. You know, we had that dude. We didn't even have the DC to trade him. We just gave him away, if I'm not mistaken. It's like, y'all see how well he's playing? You know, we look at Juju and how he's turned into a phenomenal, probably going to make the Hall of Fame. B.I., same thing. It's like all of our young players that we didn't care nothing about are all over the league holding significant value for their teams. Forget if you want them. Forget if you want to put them on this team. That's not even the argument. It's significant value, meaning that you could get rid of them now for that price if you would have developed them to that level. Do you know how much better of a franchise we'd be as a whole if we had that type of talent coming in? This is why I've been preaching all this time. Don't be playing these little scrub dudes that's been in the league for 10 years. This is why. This is exactly why I go on these spiels about how these old dudes that have been in the league, that have made their money, need to get the hell out. It's the only reason. Because when they're sitting there, you're not developing THT. You're not developing Caruso. You're not developing all those guys. That's what happens. And then they're going to another team for dirt cheap. Team plays their value up like you should have did and trade them for what it is that you should have gotten back. And so that's why I've been preaching for the last 2 years. I don't want my team to do that again. I don't care if you believe in a guy or not. Showcase him, play him up to a value that makes sense, and then get rid of him. Put him on a good contract early so that you don't find yourself in situations like we had with THT, Caruso, and now Austin. Stop botching our young players like this. Like this is harmless. This ain't harmless. You're strengthening the field and weakening our franchise doing this stupid crap. So that's what needs to be said for the 806th time. Because I'm tired of us messing up players' value on our team while we sit up here leaning on a Patrick Beverley and leaning on, players that can't do it. Players that can't play half the way you need them to play, and players that can't attract you the type of trade return that you need to be getting. So I'm ready to see those changes in place. And I don't have any problem repeating myself if I need to again in regards to this, because it ain't just our team that needs to understand this. It's all of them. Every team in the league needs to be moving this way. If you're sitting on a guy that's been in the league for 12 years and he averaged 5 points, this is what you're not allowing for your franchise to benefit from when you do that. So that's what I wanted to say, man. That's it. That's my NBA chat video for the most part. I'm pretty sure I could come up with more stuff to say. There's a lot of games that have been played that I didn't check the scores on to see where the Lakers and other teams stand. I just didn't check before I turned on the camera this morning. But I did want to acknowledge a few things, including Chet Holmgren potentially being available in this season, whether it be in the playoffs or before that. I would end that conversation by saying I want him to consider, even though next year the likelihood of him having a easy path to Rookie of the Year is slim to none. With Wembanyama coming in, all Scoot Henderson, Thompson, all those guys, they got some serious talent coming in for him to compete with for the rookie season. But if he doesn't play this year, he will be eligible for Rookie of the Year status. So I just wonder if it makes sense for him to forego that for a chance at a playoff series that probably will go in with you falling short anyway. So that's what I would say to Chet Holmgren. Are you sure it's worth it? Because they definitely will not let you be eligible if you do this. BDL44, I thank you all for watching.